Well, Axe, thank you so much for joining me on Behind the Art. I always appreciated you inviting me on your podcast, your Brushes of Doom podcast, a couple years ago. Meant a lot to me. I felt like I needed to pay it forward a little bit and get you on my channel. And yeah, man, I think people should check out your work and know who you are. But again, welcome.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah, dude, I'm very impressed with what you've done. Like, I first have to say before anything else, like, um, the type of work you do in general is gorgeous. I think one thing about the interviews I've seen from you is you have like these heavy hitters of just all the different kinds, from fine artists to cover artists, everything. And as much as you try to relate by speaking about your work, I definitely want to talk about how much your work really is just gorgeous, dude. So to have someone of your caliber just tell me like, "Hey, would you love to come and speak to me on my thing?" I mean, honestly, man, you have your pearls before swine, my bro. Like, thank you. I appreciate being here.
Well, yeah, thank you, dude. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of like, you know how we artists are. We think we all suck. So hearing it from you, it means a lot because, I mean, obviously you're up there with some of my favorite artists. I mean, your stuff's incredible. And just overall, like, you doing the Brushes of Doom thing kind of inspired me to do this.
Oh,
So I
dude.
want to thank you for that as well. It kind of gave me a little bit confidence, like when we met up a couple years ago. So yeah, man, it's all you, dude. It's all.
No, I mean, to be fair, like, when I saw you doing this, I was like, dude, hell yeah! If anybody truly needs to be doing a pod, especially in today's age, which I hope we get to talk about the mental state of artists before social media and now after. Because I stopped doing Brushes of Doom after 13 years, as far as the podcast. Um, and to see you come up and do your thing, and not just have like another this is what I think about art. For you it's very much more of like, dude, I love your work. You're from around the world. You do all these things, and then not only that, but you really give a shit, man. Cuss.
Oh yeah, go ahead, man. Feel
Perfect.
free.
You really give a shit not only about the work people do, but like it shows you care about people that make the work. And I think we're kind of in a weird world now where as long as we can pretend to care about the artist, it keeps the clicks going. And you are definitely one of the people I can always vouch for, that when you give a shit about somebody, you actually do, man. So, no, man, all props to you and what you're doing with this.
Yeah, thanks, dude. Yeah, I mean, it was an idea that I kind of just had for a while, and a lot of these guys I've known for a long time. So I'm still surprised that people are very open to doing this because it is a bit nerve wracking, kind of being interviewed in some aspect. You know what I mean? But I'm stoked. So far it's been pretty fun, and like I'm enjoying it. It's getting to know artists that I've known for a while, and also just like exposing them to people who don't know who they are, because I try to pick guys who don't have a lot of stuff online, or at least interviews, so it kind of
Sure.
helps whatever. So
Yeah, no, you did a perfect job of it, man. I wondered why you would want to pick me, because for the most part, I'm the one who interviews people. No one ever interviews me. But the gentleman that is he does the space sci-fi stuff. I believe he's Polish or Russian or something.
oh, Michael
Yeah.
Karks, yeah.
Oh my God, I was salivating over his work, especially because I'm a big Mobius fan.
Oh
The
yeah.
God. But I'm such a huge fan of that when speaking to him, you were talking a lot about him, but the from DeviantArt, how long ago you've known each other, and to be able to be like, dude, isn't it so cool that we're here now? I think the reason a lot of us artists truly trust and want to be part of your thing is because you can see the effort on the other side. So yeah, man, please take it away, brother.
All right, man. Yeah, I know. I was actually I bet you were gonna think like, wait, I'm the one who interviews, but now, and that's exactly why I wanted to do this, because it's good to
What's that
be.
what's that IRS jacket you're wearing? Is that something I should be worried about?
but yeah, because I honestly, like, I've known you for maybe 5 years. Like,
About
I
five.
know we met through Tony, and I used to work at Monterey Signs, and that's how we kind of met each other. But I besides you being a tattoo artist, and you know, I don't really know much about you, so I kind of want to ask you, like, so when did you begin like art? I mean, you can go back as far as you want. When you were a kid, when you started professionally, like when did you, I guess, start creating art?
It all started when father took me to the circus. No, I ironically, I one of my very first memories was of my father. I met him like that I can remember when I was five, and he was away at college. They used to call it Penn State Penn, and he was trying to like relate to me, and he had this young blood comic. I don't know why the fuck he chose an Image book, but I mean, I'm an Image guy, but specifically that one. And he brought it to me, and he had a piece of tracing paper, and he's like try drawing. And I really did try, but I did not have the patience for it. So from about five till about maybe 17, I did not draw. I mean, for the most part, I'm a musician. And for me, I play 8 different instruments. And
Okay.
so for me, it kind of started off in this world, but my father kind of kept me around tattoo artists. He himself being uh, a contractor and a house painter. He was born way before any of our time, but very choice words, let's just say, about how he saw people in art. But it was ironic because he wanted to be a designer, like an interior designer. But that came with a certain visual stipulation or social stipulation of his generation. And ironically, him being a house painter, he would sit there and help people design their drapes and their houses and these things in Pebble Beach or Carmel or, King City in South County. And I would go with him. And even though I was like, I'm going to be a rock and roll star, father, uh, I was sitting there and he would be like, hey, Sherman Williams, the color books, um, the swatches, he would go, hey, 00167. I need that one right there. And I go, it's periwinkle, but in Sherman Williams, it might be something called white dove. But if you go to Dunn Edwards, they'll call it blueberry nouveau. So he had me doing this, and it kind of trained me without knowing it. So when I started working at a tattoo shop around 14, which is wink a wink, 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 wasn't very legal. I started going around, man, and they let me kind of learn the trades of a shop. Shout out to RC Kelly and a few others that were just really in my corner. And um, I was around tattoo artists, and I had this moment where my mentor, his name is uh, Larry Hewlett. He was my original mentor, all of our mentors. He was very big on like telling us the story off of Highway 68. It was a place called Indian Ink Tattoo. And he goes, one day I had a buffalo nickel. Of course he did, but and the buffalo nickel. Sorry, there's a fly in here. I'm not pitting, I swear. And he was like, I had to make a choice. Was I going to do an Indian trading post or a tattoo shop? So he flips the nickel. I'm sure the glint in his eye was extra crisp that day, and it landed on tattoo shop. So one day I'm driving southbound. I'm going in between helping out at the shop and playing gigs and stuff and traveling touring with bands. And I was like touring like Europe. I was touring stuff as a teenager. I had dropped out of high school, but I've been 6'1", 300 pounds since I was like in fifth grade. So I'm a big dude naturally. And I was really at this moment where one of my coworkers was like, dude, you've been with us for a few years. You're not going to make it. You're just not. You treat this as a paycheck, not as something to do. And there's a difference between an artist and a tattoo artist. And if you don't want to do it, that's fine, but get the fuck out of the way for the rest of us. And I was kind of like, ooh. Like one of my first things was is I'm playing at the Catalyst sold out or Great American Music Hall sold out, and hear these things, and then you get to this place where they were speaking to me about you're never going to improve because every time that you meet this wall in art that we do as artists, you can always fall back to music where you're already kind of made it, quote unquote made it. And so if I tell you your drawings aren't done well, you're not going to try hard because you always have something to fall back on. So, one of the first times I got to meet the new crew in Salinas when I moved from Soledad was, hey, you're the rocker guy. I go, yeah. They go, play guitar on this. And they handed me a broom. And I was like, oh, fucking dick. So, anyways, I took that advice from Rip, Larry, and I flipped a coin, and I flipped it in my van while driving, which is not something you should do. And I said, if it lands on heads, I will stay in music and I'll give up tattooing. If it lands on tails, I'll absolutely like I'll go to tattooing and I'll quit music. And it landed on tails. And I promised myself from there that I would like kind of stick to it. And over the years, how long I've been doing this now, it's my 19th year. Um, yeah, man, it was kind of the word I've been using a lot lately is serendipitous because enough things I think have happened where there was no lack of opportunity. It was more of the opportunity to not pull back from trying to go into it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a big misconception about like being a good artist doesn't necessarily translate to being a good tattoo artist.
Oh no.
I did a interview with my buddy Shindy. He lives in the UK,
Oh,
but he's a
I watched him because my wife and I'm sorry to interrupt, but
oh
my
yeah.
wife and I were watching quite a few to just kind of get a vibe for the pod. And immediately he comes out looking like a dream. And the dude's like, well, I was, tattooing out here in London. And I was like, fuck, chat, am I cooked? Because I have no accent. And then you have the other guy from Argentina or something like that. And my wife's like, you're cooked, bro. No, his work is beautiful, tattoo and illustrator wise.
Yeah, I mean, he's beyond amazing. Like, just like totally like downplays his skill. Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, like you're insane, dude. But but yeah, that usually you like this the casual person will say like, oh yeah, you're a really good artist. You should do tattoos. But there's a lot more involved in being a tattoo artist rather than just tattooing, but the whole culture behind it as well. And like what are some of the things that people aren't aware about being a tattooist that they assume is a way, but it's actually not.
Yeah, 100%, dude. I do seminars predominantly, right? Like I'm an instructor, not a teacher. I learned a long time ago through a my second grade teacher, Mrs. Haven. So big shout out to the big H. Um, she's this like really like sweet Dutch white woman, and she had been like, the difference between a teacher and the difference between a instructor is one will regurgitate something, one will guide you through that thing. I think tattooers are by and large pick 'em and stick 'em artists. You have street shops which are phenomenal, but there's a lot of this hierarchy, like how they describe punk rock, right? The most rule following society.
Yeah.
So you see a lot of like the ins and outs of it. And when I was still coming up, there was a lot of gangbangers and cholos and bikers and stuff that were running everything. So I think the misconception is because of social media these days, people are like, well, I can do everything much better and faster because, oh, well, duh, like I don't have to do that anymore. On half of the spectrum, especially being as young as I was when I got into it, at the time I got into it, I was there before the TV shows hit. I was there during the TV shows and after. And I worked at a world-class shop. Like we can get into that later, but there was three major shops at that time that were like really killing it at the time. And I got into number three. And being around that kind of demographic was not only interesting, but it kind of showed these two worlds meshing together of you're either going to be somebody that regurgitates something or you're going to be somebody who helps be guided or guide others. LA was a real big hodgepodge back then of people learning fine art, trying to find a way to make a living at art. And these tattoo artists who could tattoo all day, but they fucking sucked at drawing, like without like, a Sailor Jerry or a um, Cherry Creek Flash or Burt Grimm. So I think there's a lot to be said. I mean, at the end of the day, I'll summarize it to majority of things have rushed into this like who's popular, who can do it, and whatnot. And for the most part, that doesn't necessarily make you a tattoo artist. I think a good tattoo artist can draw and render and make things of their own.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, because I've always, obviously, I've always kind of, years ago, I think I was like, man, I should do tattoos, and that would be a cool job because you get to, just do art all day, and you can make a decent living and yada yada yada. But then I mean, you gotta kind of think like you're not just doing what you want to do a lot of the time. You're doing what a client wants,
Yeah,
unless you're at that certain level where you're sought out for your particular style, and but that takes years of practice and just skill and kind of notoriety, I guess, to get to that level.
right.
Um, but in terms of your art, have you ever like how did you learn to draw? Like, did you go to art school or anything like that, or you just kind of?
No, completely self-taught at first, which is why I think I do well with my instruction stuff, is because you're right. Um, Rip and RC Kelly, the main two who had helped me at first, and then obviously shout out to Raul Suarez, Morris Bravo, Kenny Travis, um, Pam Reimer. But they would give me this lore, right? That's the one thing that's beautiful about tattooing is it affects a lot about lore. And this lore that they talk about says like you have to survive the 5 winters, right? It sounds very dark and deep, but truth, what it is, I've kind of reformatted that during these seminars to I'll ask students who here believes they can make their money as a tattoo artist, and everybody always raises their hand because clearly you're there, right? So like, me, me, me. Then I said, okay, who here would um, make a living solely off their paintings or their drawings? No tattoos, no crux of a $200 minimum. And you'll see those hands drop from about, let's say, 15 people to about maybe 4. And then I ask again, I go, here, out of everybody, who would actually collect their own work? And majority of them drop their hands. There's always that one asshole in the back that everyone goes, unless that collection's in a trash can, big dog, I don't know if we're going to work. But I mean, that being said, um, I being self-taught at the moment, I was around people who all they lived for was drawing at the time. Yes, we had Flash, but everything was custom and everything was about learning and growing. We were kind of told at the time that we weren't allowed to go to conventions because it didn't make money, right? Like our boss was very big on, you're going to hate me, all of you together, because I will make you hate me. But in doing so, you will work together as a team. And 20 years later, albeit we may not talk every day, we're still brothers and family. We all have our own shops, we have our own time, our places, but we still love each other as day one. I grew up as a comic book kid, sci-fi movies. I think I always wanted to be a cinematographer or like a director. If I wasn't going to do that, I wanted to go to space and I wanted to become an astronaut. Like I just was really enamored with science.
Yeah.
But over the years, my dad was like, just look at things that you're into. So a lot of the people I was influenced by was like Jean Giraud, Mobius. I was really into like Jose Luis Garcia, Sergio Tapi. One of my favorite ones is Bernie Wrightson. But my dad was a big fan of J.C. Linedecker, Norman Rockwell, and of course Alfonso Mucha, like all these iconic people that were these illustrators. So when I got into art, I was at the time when Alex Ross and Drew Struzan were like the main things for me. So I was like, oh my God, this is cool. And I was drawing the most fucked up, terrible things where it's like Superman. Like you think Bizarro looks stupid? You should watch me draw a fucking Superman, bro. That's a backwards X. You're all, what the fuck? And so that being said, I was around these guys who were like, you need to do better and we have to work as a team. On the other hand, you have a designer, my father, who's over here and being like, listen, dude, you can either work in the fields, you can work with me in construction, or you make this happen. You do not get any happy ending here. Humans don't get happy endings. You either work for it or you don't. So drawing over enough time, I really do believe that this influence of you have to make it no matter what, you know, and you have to do better and you trace and you learn these things. I was passionate about what I had seen, but I didn't know why I was passionate about it. I don't think I gained that until like year 12. I think I will ask you, who was probably one of your top influences when you were probably, let's just say, a teenager?
Um, Definitely, I'd probably say like Jim Lee.
All right.
I mean, because I was, I think I'm a little bit older than you, but I grew up with, in the like the 91, 92 heyday of Marvel and
Yeah.
X-Men and all that stuff. I
How
remember
old are you?
Youngblood as well.
How old are you?
Um, I'm 43.
Oh, I'm 37. We're not that far off.
Yeah, so we're pretty close. But yeah, so I mean, definitely comics were huge for me, like in terms of art. And then as I got older, when I kind of got into more of the Photoshop art, Dave McKean, this guy named Travis Smith.
Yeah.
He's done a lot of Opeth's covers, and so I kind of my influences sort of changed, and then obviously Iron Maiden, like Derek Riggs,
Yeah.
was huge also because his style was so unique, and of course you got Eddie from Iron Maiden, very iconic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean it definitely shapes what your not necessarily what your style is going to be like, but definitely it gives you a certain boost of hope. Like
Well,
if these guys can make it, then maybe I have a chance, or you know what I mean?
yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what it is that when you're young, you understand what you like at its core. Like I'm a Bruce Timm fan. So when Batman the animated series came out, I was like, God, anything Art Nouveau, plus the JC Leyendecker stuff, plus the Muncha stuff, and all this other things mixed with this Alex Ross style where they're real. I was like, man, I live for this. Gonna get you Sucka and Johnny Dangerously posters from Drew Struzan were like, oh my God, not only do I love the movies, those posters, I want to buy that. I think as we get older as artists, we start comprehending the fact that you're like, oh, it's actually a bunch of C curves I'm drawn to. Oh, for Zeta, that fool is like the opposite of Tarantino because he doesn't have a foot fetish. He hides every foot behind a rock. But at the end of the
You can
day, it's
draw
like,
the foot.
yeah, I mean, Jose Luis Garcia, when you see his stuff, um, and the stuff that he did with Vampirella and these beautiful things that I think that Sergio Topi did as well, where they put a lot of information in these sketches. And as I get older, I'm like, holy shit, I like big, broad shapes. I've been focusing most of my younger career as a tattoo artist to get every little thing perfect, and then all of a sudden one day it like clicks, and you're like, oh, I like form. I don't like detail. Shit. I've been going about it wrong for 10 years. Like, all right, now I get it. And now the fun's starting 20 years into it versus if I could go back in time, yes, you and I could talk to our younger selves. No, we wouldn't comprehend it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm kind of with you with the less detail, more. Even my own art, I always focus on the figure, and then the background's kind of secondary because I
Yeah.
kind of, and that's a lot of like even like Frazetta's work and like Boris Vallejo, he does this. I mean, even though Boris Vallejo is like very detailed in some aspects, but like for the most part, it's like the central focus is the figures and the shapes and all that stuff, and that's what really gets me excited. Yeah, because it's like skipping all the boring stuff and getting to the good stuff quicker.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like the other thing too is I think us as artists in general, I mean, let's move away from the tattooing and just think about it. Like what you do for your day job, you said it perfectly earlier. Most tattoo artists, when they start, you have to realize that those 5 winters mean from about September, Octoberish till about March. You have 6 months. Nobody's really getting tattooed, especially when they don't know you, because most of their money is going towards holidays, travel, taxes, whatever it is. So you have 6 months to really do nothing but paint. And for the most part, old school way of thinking was like, especially in smaller towns like where I grew up, um, I'm gonna do a horseshoe and it's gonna say Ma. And check this shit out. It's gonna other one's gonna say, "Ah, this guy's a fucking genius." But that being said, um, could you survive after 5 winters of slow season, half doing tattoos and half truly just being an artist? So moving forward, now you're at this point where, as illustrators and as artists, yes, you build a name, you build a rapport, but you're going to do a lot of work, just like you understand as a designer, where you're always being challenged by things, but there's this little thing in the back of your head that goes, "Fuck, this ain't for me." But I got a family to take care of, but I got a home to take care of. I think at some point we plateau there as artists. And what separates the tattoo artist, the illustrator, from the um, corporate designer or the pick 'em and stick 'em tattooer is the fact that it's never enough. I may be tired, but another 6 hours to make myself happy over a design is never too much, you know?
Yeah, I mean it gets that point where I mean I'm very very much hard on myself, and I'm pretty sure you are as well. Like I mean, because I've seen you post some like your that Moon Knight stuff that you've been
Hmm.
posting. I was like, holy that shit's mind blowing, dude.
Meanwhile,
Like
I'm
I
over
was just
Meanwhile, I'm over here. I'm not even joking. Yeah, thank you for the compliment, but I'm talking to my two best friends and being like, I fucking hate this shit. This is terrible. Like, why is it that everything I hate that I do, people love and this stuff? I'm like, no, this is beautiful. And they're like, yeah, whatever, fat boy. You know? But
yeah,
that's hard.
that's the thing that is so frustrating about it is like I kind of wish I was, like so like just very passive with my own artwork and I could just like move on, but like I get so obsessed with it even though like, majority of people probably don't even notice like little tweaks that I make. But for
Mhm.
me it's like that's the whole point is like, tweaking stuff and like making sure you're happy with it. And then once you're happy with it, it's like, if people criticize it, then that's their choice. But for a fact that like, okay, I did my best, or you know, I I came or I did what I wanted to do, and now I can move on to the next thing. You know what I mean? And
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the other thing too is a real big differential between professionals and I think intermediates or even like novices is discerning the difference between critique and criticism, right? Like a person, when I say I was a self-taught artist, that's a terrible thing because when you're young, you're like, please don't touch my art. Now it's not mine. And you learn from people over the years of like, what the fuck are you doing, man? Treat a sketchbook like your thoughts. If your sketchbook is perfect, then that means that your thoughts are either in order or you're taking too much time to try to convince me that they are. If your sketchbook is messy but it's progressive, then you're actually forming something. So when people like yourself come to me and you go, "Hey man, I think that Moon Knight's cool," I probably would have went with this, and you're like, "Oh, okay, cool." You and I would both comprehend the fact that you're like, "Dude, I'm just giving you a critique," and I appreciate that because as an artist, I want my peers who are of a high caliber or even those that I respect, like yourself, to be like, hey, dude, here's something I think that would sharpen you up. It's harder when you're young because when you're young, you're like, hey, man, the Moon Knight's pretty cool. I really, that's a bold choice with the purple. But a younger person hears like, hey, man, what a piece of shit that was. I'm like, oh my God, why won't Karen talk to me?
yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing I've noticed. Like when you kind of build up somewhat of a following, especially now with social media, and you have like all kinds of accounts like Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah.
Like there's a certain level where people stop critiquing your own stuff like through the comments. Like they'll be like, oh well, I would go like because they kind of know like okay, this guy's been doing it for a while and
Sure.
he's not asking for an opinion. He's just posting the artwork, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
I know in the early days it was like I would post something and you get the like, the backhanded compliment. But at the same time, like you said, it kind of when you were younger it hurts a little bit, but after a while you sort of you compartmentalize the what there was said, and then you sort of like, okay, I can understand why they're saying this. And it
Yeah.
also what I'm currently doing right now, that's pretty much part of the job. It's like a band comes to me wanting an album cover, sometimes the first pass are like, oh, can we change the color? And if you get really upset each little change, then you're not going to succeed at all, because like you just have to learn how to just maneuver all that stuff and kind of finish the job and have
Yeah,
the client be happy.
yeah, and also just being able to again comprehend when a client and you are speaking, you get better at, like, I tell my tattoo clients, I go, listen, like, I'm not a walk-in artist, I'm a private artist. I only do 20 a month. It's not because I'm, ha da da la da da, but it's because like I really want to take my time on that one person a day. Same thing with my paintings, right? But I asked them, like, give me 5 photos of what you're really into. It doesn't even have to be of the subject. I'm looking for line weight. I'm looking for depth. I'm looking for value harmony. I'm looking for texture harmony. What is this person's idea of, and put that pattern together, and then 3 photos of what you don't like. And when I have that, it tells me exactly what I'm like. Ooh, maybe I can go with Frazetta style, because like in the eyes of Frazetta, right? We all go like, God, that guy's a fucking genius. And then, there's always gonna be that one hater back to Tarantino where he doesn't see one female's foot and he's, oh, I can't work with this shit. You know what I mean? And you're kind of like, you're always gonna have even another creative type not be literal. So our job with bands and with clients is truly to just be like, cool, man, tell me what you're thinking. And then our lexicon, our years of doing this goes like, I really think I like fire, but it's fire and ice. You're all, sweet, dude, I got you. You know what I mean? But you would comprehend that by saying, I think I know where to take it, and that's what makes you me actually speaking to you, that's what makes you a great artist, because I feel like I'm a hack, right? I feel like personally I am. And although people are very impressed by what I do, truth be told, man, like I'm looking at your work and some of these guys you're speaking to, and I'm like, God, the worlds you build. Like I'm trying to get better at understanding how to build these worlds that I see in my head. And yet you're doing them in your form, and you're like, fuck, that's amazing. But you've listened to a lot of people over the years where you're genuinely like, hey, what do you like? Really? I just think that we want death, but not deathly. And you're like, perfect. I'm going to add a woman with a sword in some kind of like very muted green viridian tone. And they're like, oh my God, it's perfect. You know what I mean? It's like,
Genius.
yeah, genius. He's done it again, Karen. You know?
Yeah, I mean, because you tell me that, I'm like, because obviously I depend a lot on, like photos and like,
Sure, sure.
3D, and like, for you, like seeing your work, it's like you could just paint that, you could paint the background, and that's what I want to get to that level where I'm just like, I don't need to have, I mean, reference is one thing, but just like, I don't want to have to go like, okay, what, I got to find a stock image of a cloud set that kind of matches this thing, and because sometimes you feel a little bit removed when you work in that kind of way.
May I
And
ask you? Oh, I'm
yeah.
sorry. Sorry. Continue. I'm so sorry.
Oh no, just go ahead, man.
Can I ask you a question then? So I think that's a thing that a lot of us fear, right? Is that I remember being in Fresno, California, unfortunately, and I was out there, unfortunately, and unfortunately, I was there with some very amazing artists. But this woman that was painting, I mean, her form, dude, she just took an old brush, like a number 22, a flat, dipped it into her washout cup, and then just was perfectly building the form of this person. And you're like, fuck, that's so good. And there gets to be this kind of like pit in your stomach of, man, I'm not as good as that. And you almost kind of feel embarrassed, right? Like that's our insecurities as humans. But like me, one of my favorite artists is the very late and great Kim Gee, rest his soul. Any of these South Korean people, man, Jesus Christ, I mean, they are second highest in education, first or second highest in the artistic professional endeavor, but they're the highest in the suicide rate. The trade-off between this is super hard, right? That they can draw everything from their head. Question is, do you feel that when you're watching people build these worlds and don't use reference, do you feel behind? Because I am at a point where I can do it, but I can't Kim Gi do it. But at the same time, how many hours I sit looking at work like yours and some of your guests and just staring at it and truly being like, ah, shit, they're adding a fucking layer in between the background and the foreground. So I have to physically paint it this way. So, the question again is like, do you feel that by using reference, are you really at where you want to be, or do you feel like eventually that'll go away? Because I think that's hard when we see people like the Kim Gees of the world just pop them out and you're like, oh, son of a bitch.
Well, I mean, the thing is like, the type of style, like to paint like hyper realistic, I mean, takes years upon years. I mean, so the advantage of working digital, and I mean, part of the reason why I was drawn to it was because I could sort of do that like hyper realistic stuff without spending 20 years on, fine art, like learning, how to paint landscapes and all. Because like obviously there are painters that can do that,
Sure.
but for me, for instance, like I mean, I can paint and I can draw, but I can't necessarily paint and draw what I make on the computer.
Mm.
So I don't know. Like I'm kind of like, I think if I do more of my traditional stuff, like I'd probably just go a whole different direction. Like I wouldn't try to emulate what I do digitally. I would just try to do something completely different, maybe
Right.
more abstract, something on, something I don't have to like be super detail oriented, but more expressive, I guess. So I would definitely separate those two. I mean, because I feel like, I mean, unless, I just, you know, had all the time in the world to just, take all these classes on how to do this and how to do that. Like that's one thing. But yeah, I mean, for right now, like I would probably just do something completely more abstract, like, mixed media stuff's really appealing to me because I can sort of combine the digital stuff. I can print stuff out. I can paint on it, etc. It's a little bit the best of both worlds type of thing. But yeah, I mean, in your case, like, I mean, especially like, I mean, I keep bringing up the Moon Knight stuff, but like,
Oh, you son of a bitch.
like to me, like, see, I couldn't just, the whole like angles that you're painting at. I mean, that's like hours of me adjusting stuff in like 3D programs to kind of get that right angle,
So
and to be able to just do that, from reference and all that's amazing to me.
I appreciate it, man. No, you're too kind. But I mean, ironically, it's the idea of the grass is greener, right? Like I'm looking at your work, I'm looking at a few other people's work because I think so I had a friend who went to have their portfolio looked at by a major uh comic book company, let's just put it that way, legally. And we're sitting there and the person looks through their entire imagine this is a really big portfolio of people on YouTube landia, and so he goes through and all you hear is and immediately just I mean that's no joke, Kieran. That's how fast he looked through this dude's entire life's work. I was like, no thank you. And we were like, what the fuck? So the person was like, yeah man, I'm just not into it. And it was just like, okay. And they're kind of like, well, let's go guys, and I was kind of like, no 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 no, let's ask it what it is. You paid for it. So we asked and the person was like, listen dude, like we live in a universe, okay, and in this universe you have beautiful character designs, but that's it. Like I just see people in like a quarter turn. What do they wear? What's in their hands? What do they drive? Where do they live? What are the weather patterns like on these places? Like I believe you have characters. I don't believe they live anywhere. And there was this kind of like aha moment where to me, I mean, I've studied Alex Ross and Drew Struzan so much over the years. And with tattooing, you're working with the flow and the form of a body, right? Everything that works onto them is basically like spiritual armor, for a lack of a better term, because it flows in with the muscle lines. And so that being said, you're kind of used to putting things at these like very foreshortened angles. So if I put this here and my hand's kind of in this lower third quadrant for you in YouTube Landia, if you're not listening in the podcast world, If you're driving, make sure that you take your eyes off the road and imagine this right now. But like, so if my hand's in this quadrant, that means that if I put my head, which is right here in the center of the second quadrant, that's interesting. But if I put my head in the third quadrant and I do this and I really push back the idea of my hand extending out, this line here behind my head and this line here tells me like, oh my God, that's really like extreme. But what it's doing is I'm at the same angle that my bookshelves up here, and where's my other hand? Right there. That's where this bookshelf is. So the linear storytelling in the way you're doing it, your brain goes, holy shit. It feels bigger. It lives in a space. So with what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to go back to these world building art forms, including yours, and tell myself like, man, am I a cover artist or am I a splash page guy? Splash pages to me, like the new Moon Knight I just did. Um, I'm going to be doing another one. I'll tell you off mic, but it's of a different character, and I'm really going to the roots of like these really beautiful splash pages you would have seen Sergio Topi do, or you would see Mobius, where there's a lot of architectural influence. But at the same time, as cool as that is, I have to remember two things. Value works differently in uh, environments than it does people. Do you know the difference, if I may ask?
Of what?
The value between like if we're using people as value, what we do, dark to light versus environments.
Yeah, I think
No, 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 go ahead.
you're
No,
putting me
I'm,
on
I'm
the
not.
spot here.
I'm not trying to,
Maybe,
because I think for some people that are listening, it's always kind of cool to hear it.
yeah. I mean, that's one thing with me is like sometimes like I do things just out of like because I study other artists. I just do it
Push.
out of that as opposed to knowing the like the real like even color theory. I know zero about color theory, but I know certain colors are they go together and all that
Sure.
stuff. So it's kind of a weird thing.
So I'll say it. So like when we're thinking about people, we work darker values. So if it's black is 10 and white is 1, anything that is in the 1 to 5 bracket is going to be for a person that's emerging from light. It's not being enveloped.
Okay, yeah.
And so when we're looking at distance, imagine you driving on a road. Again, if you're driving and listening to this, brushes of doom is telling you not caring. Go and take your hands off the wheel and close your eyes. Punch on the gas too. And if you think of you driving to work in the morning after you see your family and the fog's up, anything in the distance actually gets lighter and anything closer is darker. So when we create these values in our world building, if you are creating this album for somebody, or I'm taking Moon Knight, I'm trying to put those things in this world. The biggest problem with me is I'm a fucking scientist that's trapped in that artist's body. So when I do these things, I'm like, oh, this is really cool. This is really cool. And then it comes down to this point of like, uh, at the end of it, you're looking at it and you're telling me, cool, man, that looks really cool with the foreground stuff. I'm like, what? Oh yeah, there's actually a triangle here. I'm just looking at a triangle, bro. And you're just like, oh, this guy's stupid. He it's like Bluey, but worse. But yeah, man, I mean, at the end of the day, the the stuff that's funny, and the reason I ask you these things is because whether you know the terms or not, I'm looking at your work and I'm looking at other peers and I'm thinking, fuck, man, I gotta catch up to you. It doesn't matter the medium, it doesn't matter if it's mixed media, digital, whatever, you're still doing it. I don't do digital because as much as I know theory like the back of my hand, like I teach color theory pretty goddamn well. You put me on a Cintiq tablet and I'm like, oh, this is good. Like I don't know what I'm doing, man. So I mean, give yourself your flowers, but your work inspires people like myself to be like, wow, I know the triangle, but this guy, he's not using the triangle. He's doing something else and it's fucking working beautifully. That's the beauty about art, right? Is that we can just kind of break the mold. Damn you, Picasso. But like learn the rules and then break them, bro.
Yeah, I mean, and at the end of the day, it's also just the stuff that you use to make the art is a tool, and like whatever tools you use to get your point across is like that's how you make art. And I
Sure.
know there's kind of I mean, lately with the whole AI thing,
Mhm.
But just in terms of like, digital art in general has gotten kind of a lot of flack. I mean, not so much anymore, but I know in the early days it was like, oh, that's not real art. That's just you're just letting the computer do the work. But now it's like literally AI is doing the work for you. But
Yeah.
but yeah, there's a certain like, people look down on digital stuff because, there's unlimited undos and like you can just kind of mess with colors and all this other stuff like, but for me, obviously it it resonated with me because I know being someone who started doing traditional stuff and like would paint and draw, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh wow, I can take a photo of my hands holding something, and then I can do like fire, and then it's like that would take me like 2 months to paint or something, and I can just do that in a sitting, and I just to me I was able to kind of get my creative juices out of there, and be like, okay, I'm good now. But like, that's another thing I struggle with traditional stuff is like, it's very time consuming, and sometimes you spend days on something, and then at the end you're like, this looks like shit, and then you feel like you wasted like 3 days of your life, as opposed to if you had something in your head and you do it digitally, you can kind of within the first hour you can find out, oh, is this going to work or not, or is this going to like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that but that's more of a modern day thing like that you have to like worry about now is like time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you are an artist, man. Like one of my least favorite fucking sayings of all time, and I think it's the dumbest thing ever, is that art is subjective. Art is not subjective. Style is. Uh, I use the metaphor of imagine you have a son, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Cool. Let's say he's in kindergarten. Um, so you go, he's having it's like an art fair for the kids, and everybody did sailboats with finger paints. Every fucking parent there, including you guys, even if your kid's got like the best, tugboat, but all of a sudden some kid has Steamboat Willie, and you're like, God damn, that's really good. Art is not subjective because good is good. Like, it's not music, right? Music, you could be the most tone deaf person, and if someone's like, and I will always go on, someone's like, "Ah, la verga, wait, no," you know what I mean? Like, you could tell it's terrible. But at the end of the day, it's like we know when form works, we know when something works. Style is subjective because the way that your son did it versus that kid may just be in the hue or the palette or the tone that you really care for. We can tell good from bad. Now, the level of what we discern that is different. So, digital artists, in my opinion, have done some amazing things. One of my all-time heroes of all time is the great and powerful Tim Miller, of Studio Blur. We would never have any cutscene or anything for any video game, any shorthand movie. You would not have Love, Death, and Robots. You would not have Secret Level. I mean, he is the quintessential god of all things um, 3D animation when it comes to video games and what we're into, right? But his biggest thing is about storytelling. And what I think you do well is you are what I consider myself in this stage of my career is a raconteur. Do you know what that is?
no, I
Perfect.
don't.
No, that's good. We're both learning, bud. A raconteur is a storyteller. And I truly
Okay.
believe that the difference between really great artists and those that are good enough, this sounds really mean, but it does make a difference, is in the world of a billion people on Instagram and a billion people on YouTube and doing all this stuff. You have an art podcast that's going against 50,000 others just in America alone, just like I did. But the truth is, you tell really good stories. And raconteurs, as an artist, we are meant to go ahead like the first people in cave paintings. They're there to tell you a story. So your design, no matter how good or not good it is, it's the subject of it that's subjective. I'm getting to look at your style in a digital form versus mine in a physical form, and I'm like, God, man, your world is making me like, wow, that's amazing. Meanwhile, you're looking at mine being like, wow, that's dope. Your storytelling is done so well that we don't have to agree on if it's good. It's good enough because it's captivating. And I think that's where real art lies, at its core.
Yeah, I mean, I feel, yeah, there's definitely like, I mean, I'm a fan of abstract artwork, like, just like literally a canvas with like a texture with some like splatter on it.
Absolutely.
For some
Yes.
reason, I'm very fascinated by that. And it's like, a normal person would look at that and go, oh, that's easy. Anybody can do that. But I've even attempted to do some like kind of abstract stuff. And it's actually like, you start to like look at like balance of colors and like why is there more texture on this end and not on that side, and then
Yes.
you kind of like start to think about it, and that's, to me, that's the moment of creation, is when you actually like put effort. And
Break the mold.
yeah, not a lot of people can see that as a skill. Like they kind of go, oh, you're just whatever. But a lot of it is also emotion. Like, I've seen these like artists who are just like they put the canvas on the ground and it just like, they basically like stomp on it with their feet and then they like punch it or something, and then it just like has all these swirls, and then they kind of like build off of that.
We
To
used
me,
to
that's
call
always been, what.
we always used to call them the Soho Wobros, because like you would go to Soho and check out some of these galleries, and it would be a guy screaming into a paintbrush with one strip of yellow, like nothing crazy, and he would be screaming 50 grand, and somebody would sell it, and it's like, whoa, Soho Wobro. And to each their own, but what worked for me in the physical realm versus the digital realm was my mentors were very keen on how quick I adapt to things. But if I'm not interested, i.e., like client stuff that maybe isn't our forte, I wouldn't give as much effort to it, and that doesn't look good on a tattoo shop that thrives off of a good name, right? So they made me do watercolor because they were like, listen, watercoloring is like tattooing. You cannot erase. Once it's there, it's there. I mean, I've learned techniques since then that you can mess around with things, but at that time, and they said,
Yeah.
so you cannot work around it. You have to work through it. Like you have to find a way to work through it and make the best of what you have here, which the next time you're being more conscious of how you step. Like you said, people who do cubism or minimalism, man, there's some subtleties in those things that, cool, man. If three circles don't impress you, watch Disney and let me know how your $1 trillion bank account's doing without them. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, it works in however you want to work it, man. So yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, actually, I was going to ask you, like, why you picked watercolor and gouache as like your medium, because I've been messing with gouache a lot, but more so because it's similar to like acrylics and oil, because you can kind of like blend
And
on the
reactivate.
paper, and there's no like, in drying time you can just reactivate it, and that's kind of interesting to me.
Yeah.
But why, I mean, you kind of explained it, like, because
Well,
you can't make changes, or like you can't make huge changes.
partially that. I mean, we used to use Indian ink, and we used to use especially back in the day, Karasumi ink. Karasumi ink was a very uh, uh, cool type of black. The amount of carbon in it when it dries, you get this very like cool hue to it. As to where dynamic ink, which is the one I use, has a very warm subtlety to it. And excuse me, watercoloring was just kind of the thing you did back in the day. The one thing I absolutely will not do is spit shade. I don't give a shit who you are. I do not stick brushes in my mouth, dude. I don't know why the hell my friends do that. But I one day um I was in this terrible fucking conundrum as a kid. I was in this really tumultuous relationship, just being young and dumb, myself as well. And my only escape was this Borders books. So I go there one day and I'm sitting there and I just pull off the shelf um Rough Justice. I thought I was like, oh, it's the guy from Kingdom Come. Like I fucking love that graphic novel. And it was Rough Justice, which was the pencil sketches, and then it was um the mythology book. That was the painted version of Rough Justice. And I sat there being like, holy shit. Like this is it. Majority of the stuff that I've always been into was like Rockwell, right? Again, with Mucha and Line Decker. So a lot of people that I was into the stuff. My father collected a tremendous amount of Coca-Cola memorabilia, reminded him of being a kid. All those paintings, if they weren't oil, they were gouache because it was so quick. It paints like a watercolor, it dries like an acrylic, and it reactivates like an oil. So it's the best of all worlds. And what was crazy was is I learned that Alex Ross used gouache, Winsor and Newton designers gouache. So I go, I get some, and I try it, and oh my god, dude, it was terrible. Like one of my first paintings, because a lot of tattooers, they burn the paper to give it like that cool aesthetic, and I almost burnt my apartment down. And this was my first apartment after living in a van for years. And I kind of stuck to it, but then as I kept diving deeper into the things I was into, a lot of 1960s sci-fi and a lot of 1930s 30s pulp, that's all gouache because the turnaround time is so freaking quick that gouache was the easiest way to get those really nice warm tones or those subtleties in your work. If you need to work thick, fat over lean. If you need to work quick, lean over fat. And all this stuff was happening. So when I would paint with watercolor guys, I could keep up. When I would paint with acrylic guys, I could keep up. When I would go and paint with the oil guys in LA, learning with those guys at that other shop, I could keep up because I technically had the perfect medium. So that really was it just was happenstance that was the medium of the choice that got me where I'm at today.
Yeah, I mean, I heard it. It's easy to photograph too, like
Yeah,
because
it's very
it
matte.
doesn't have any like shine to it, so you can just like
Yes.
take a photo of it. And I think Claudio Bergaman, this guy I interviewed a couple months ago, he did this series with this guy named Dennis Wollock, and he was like the creative director of Kiss.
Hmm.
And the Kiss at one point they released these like 4 solo albums, and they had their faces on each album cover, and those portraits were actually done by gouache.
Yeah.
So I was always like,
Th-
oh, and
that was the
looks
gentleman
good.
who did the one with like the red background and like the chrome and everything, right?
Yeah,
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 yeah. I loved that interview you did, man, because he said something that, again, big nerd out moment of your podcast, but also of his work, of when he was talking about it. He was the one that my wife was like, "Oh, you're cooked," because they all have really cool accents, and I was, "Oh, fuck, I just have a lisp," So, but he had said, he goes, um, primary red is such an invasive color that when we put it on something, it almost is too much to bear. And unless you put something next to it that really complements how harsh that is, it's not going to make sense to the viewer because we're painting in our skill, but we're painting for that person's understanding of that story, and that's
yeah,
so true.
yeah, totally. I mean, he's super good. I mean, just like his composition, his like color theory, and all that stuff is really great. Um, Sort of switching gears. So how long did it take for you to finally open Sacred Eight Studios? Like, did you have a tattoo shop prior to Sacred Eight, or was Sacred Eight your first tattoo shop? And why? And why did you kind of opt to do a comic book store and a tattoo parlor? Or was there one point where is this going to be a tattoo shop, and then you kind of added the comic stuff, or what's the deal with that?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So this is my first tattoo shop that I own. I did have a studio years ago, so I did the first shop I ever worked at was in Salinas, California, and then I was partially trapped in Fresno for a few like maybe like 8 9 months, and amongst this time I was living out of my van. So I lived in out of my van for almost like 3 years.
Oh wow,
And
okay.
yeah, back when it was scummy to do, man. Now all fucking goddamn white kids with money, these Soho,
That's
the Soho,
the mini homes or the tiny homes.
yeah, the Soho Wobros, man. I can never get it, whether it's a yellow painting or a fucking Ford Eclipse. Like I swear to God. But like I was living out of this van and I end up my life kind of falls apart and I go to Los Angeles. I call the three top shops at the time and I get hired at one. I mean, by random chance, the guy was in Hong Kong. I get there and I was like, I'm here for the interview. And like, oh, we're not hiring, dude, and he's not here. I was all, fuck. He's all cool. So you live here, right? I'm like, yeah, right. Oh God, right down the street. And he goes, cool, man, come back in a week. So I just stayed on the street for a week. Like I wanted it that bad. And I was like, nothing has ever deterred me from this. This is truly really the only profession I've had since a teenager, is art. And um I learned a tremendous amount at that time. I got to meet people from all over different professional industries, film, music, art, everything. I was very lucky to meet Sean Barber, one of my favorite painters, Carl Dobsky over in West Hollywood, Sean Cheetham. And these guys who were just, I mean, they were killing it because at this time, that's really where it was kind of coming up. There was also a notoriety to that. So this pays off going forward. I moved back to the area, decided that I want to move again. My father's on his last leg of his life. And I was legitimately going from here to Bend, Oregon, 15-hour drives just to guest spot at this place.
Oh
And,
wow.
we were taking care of my father. We moved out of Monterey, went to Los Baños. And every morning, my wife, now wife, then girlfriend, and I were driving 2 hours every morning to just go to work. And then 2 hours back at the end of the day just to do it. So around this time, I was working on different things as far as thoughts, ideas. I had a studio previously in Monterey that was a small little thing. I have a few books coming out next year that will have all the photos of this time in my life that I'll talk about later. But around this time, I was right where Hollister was, and I was right when you're kind of going towards um, what is it called? Casa de Fruta. And there's this term in Japanese tattooing called the sacred eight. And the sacred eight means the flow and balance of things in your body or in your designs. Everything in the universe has the number eight in it that has balance or structure. And at that time, I was really leaving the old me behind and trying to build the new thing. So I just kind of kept that in the back of my pocket, and I COVID happens, and then a little bit before that, and after when things started opening up, I was going all around the country. I was going to Florida, I was going to New York, Pennsylvania, Texas, and I was tattooing at Comic Cons with this group back in the day called Geekster Inc., and then eventually one called Excelsior. Josh Bodwell, huge shout out to him, was on the A&E show called Epic Inc. He had hit me up years ago when I was in Fresno, unfortunately. And hey man, you should come and tattoo on the show. You'd be a perfect fit. Nerds tattooing. Come on. Cause I mean, doing anime and nerd stuff, it was so random back then for us. There was only a few of us that were really kind of openly out there doing it. And I was like, nah, man, I'm just not good enough. So these guys blow up all the Walker Stalker cruises, every major Comic Con you can imagine. These guys ride the wave for like a few years. We meet up at the tail end of this thing, and I meet these guys. And there was one in Bradenton, Florida, Classic Inc. and Titan Comics, who were two different businesses put into one. And the gentleman there had met me, come to find out the people I worked for in LA and some of the people that had knew me through the industry, we all kind of, it's who you understand this. And we're like, cool, man, let's talk, let's do this and that. And then after a while, I was like, you know what? I think I need to open up my own studio. It originally was intended to be just this, kind of how my office is now. I've always wanted a private studio. I love working with people, but at the end of the day, I just kind of never wanted to work with anyone again because personally, I end up being the one that has to fucking clean up after everybody. Not to say people have never taken care of me. Absolutely, they have. But in the sense of like, it's different than like helping me get better at tattooing versus like me cleaning up your fucking messy marriage that you can't keep going, you know? So I kind of just did not want to keep doing this. And I came up with it. I started it during COVID in our garage on my phone, and it was just selling comics. The tattooing I was already doing, so I obviously had to wait on that. And because of all these places I traveled and people I met, they blew up our Facebook page, and I think we made like 3 grand in one night,
Oh
and
wow.
just buy, selling, and shipping. So I do all the audio, I do all the visuals, the audio ads, everything. And so I'm doing all this. I'm doing comics during the day. I'm still drawing. And then I would write these things. So you buy something from me, Fly By Night wants to buy this, or Kieran's Digital wants to buy this. And I'd be like, thank you for sponsoring our death ray. When we take over the world, you'll die first, or like when you're last Mother's Day, we didn't say Happy Mother's Day to your mom. After all the years of teabagging her, we apologize. Just stupid shit, right? But it kept like the more I got to be me, and the more I just kind of went off the top of my head, it grew. And then eventually we took the risk, and I was like, well, I don't want two businesses. I want one. This was just my private studio that went into like, well, if I have a comic book shop, then comic book anime people will want to come and get tattooed what I'm about versus just a walk-in shop. And
Yeah.
then a few years later, we've grown into a 3,000 square foot warehouse. And now we're on our way to looking at like a 10,000 square foot warehouse if we can get so lucky. And it's just, I mean, I'll be honest, man, I have never in my life thought that anyone would give two shits about anything I do and or what I'm about. But now comes the hard part of Brushes of Doom has been the only thing keeping this place going financially, physically, mentally, artistically, on top of a bunch of other people who have tried to help. Of course, I've had Brett Stuhler and Mikey Lane and, just all these amazing people. Of course, my best friends, Cesar Chavez and Nathaniel Duran, my beautiful wife and my nieces, and just so many people, including yourselves. I mean, you guys are here for Pod War. It just dumb shit we do here. But on the other end, people only see this as a comic book shop that has tattoos. So I've had to re-engage this year in getting people to know that, like, if you're at Sacred 8 in the Sacred Society, all these things, you're at my studio. You're just in my living room, and I can't defer too far from that. All these things, Sacred 8, Sacred Society, everything, was kind of a joke. A guy with a fucking lisp making everything out of S's? Come on, dude. Like, to be honest, majority of what I do is a giant fucking dick joke. What I don't consider a joke are the people who actually really come here to like find an identity, or the clients that I take care of, which is why I have such a huge respect for you, because it has allowed me to meet people when I really didn't know if this was the right avenue for me, to be around and be like, oh shit, there's somebody I would have never met had I not taken this fucking risk that actually is like way cooler than I deserve. Rad, you know what I mean? So it's not easy, man, but it's worth every fucking penny. A good quote that I will say to stop my rambling is, when you're on the right path, life is not difficult, it is challenging. For a difficulty is something that we uh, try to avoid for its inconvenience, and a challenge is something we meet when we are ready. And that's how I feel about all this. Is it's been a giant challenge, but not difficult.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about how far you've come from like living in your van to now you own a shop, and it's pretty amazing, like the will of like just because you're so passionate about it, and you've I mean that seeing stuff through is should be the number one priority of anything you do, whether
Sure.
you stick with it in the long run. If you set out to do something and you do it and then you walk away, that's cool, but at least you did it and you felt it out and all this other stuff. Because so many people that they don't even start, they don't even do what they set out to do, and they have a lot of regrets and everything. But yeah, I'm blown away because like yeah, I'm still struggling just getting clients just from my house. I mean, let alone you're running a studio, have employees, you have you're doing everything basically, and that's super, I mean, impressive. And I'm sure there's pros and cons to all that, like being a business owner.
I would say this, man, like, be very proud of yourself first and foremost. Like, your consistency in your work, your consistency in your podcasts, and the things that I think what set you apart in my mind is honestly, it's not just consistency, but it is the fact that you are accountable, right? Like, my business on paper sounds fucking stupid. Like, let's say you're banker, okay? Kieran's a fucking multi-trillionaire banker. Hello, Kieran Bezos. I would like a business loan. What do you do, Mr. Doom? And I'm like, well, I have a tattoo shop and it's next to a comic book shop. I have a recording studio that I actually do audiobooks and full radio plays. I do 3 podcasts. I also paint for places like, Marvel or Image or Dark Horse. I tattoo, and every Saturday, 100 people are going to be here for clubs, and we also do potlucks and donate to the community. You would look at me and be like, "Bro, get a mission statement." At the end of the day, when I'm doing this stuff, I really am just trying at the end of it all that I am no different than you are, having to have gotten clients from home and say, cool. I I've learned, especially from my father, who is heavily tattooed, as well as myself, that like some people in life, especially from his age demographic, you as well knowing, being of a different culture as well, that people will judge us in certain places. The world has gotten a little bit, you would hope, a little bit more open-minded in some areas, but especially in my father's time, he was like, some people are going to be judged for their skin tone. He was extremely dark. And he goes, but you can't get angry if someone gets mad at you for how you look with tattoos. He goes, because you chose to look like an asshole. He goes, I didn't choose to look like an asshole. Almost, so you're just an asshole. He's like, hey. So, that being said, when I go and do stuff, I just kept trying to, um, like we have our new series, Dungeons and Dickheads, coming out. They're small radio plays. And one of them is I have full on things at the beginning of our podcast where it's like, there's one man who was, he had a scroll of over 600 wrist techniques. We call him the Hentai Hokage. And it's literally based off of one of the guys locally here who just loves his good Christian anime, you know? But that being said, you being you, me being me, that's what draws the right artists and clients in. It's scary because we spend so much time building these worlds that are not real to us. But every time you design something, you are just as adamant about that design as you are of being a father or a husband. I'm just as passionate no matter how many hours I do. I just did 240 hours painting and filming the time lapses for this Marvel project I'm on. Um, I'm doing part of, and yeah, man, like I got to see my wife maybe like 2 3 hours over 2 weeks, and God bless her to be like, you know what, you're doing great, you got this. So when I get my first 2 days off in 2 weeks, it's only time for her or my friends. You know what I mean? Like, we
Yeah.
have to give that kind of shit. And I think where you're at, coming as from someone that was there and still feels he's still there, you're doing great, dude. Fucking just keep going, bro.
Ditto, man. Yeah, like I know just being an artist, and I know like when you get into your work, it's not just you punching in numbers and you can just like bail. It's like it's
Yeah,
you get really into it, and you have to really have people around you that understand that and sort of like realize you're not like avoiding them. you're
yep,
just you're just basically trying to live. And like I've been feeling that a lot lately because I haven't been my day job has been pretty busy, and I've been super burnt out like after work, and then any like amount of time that I have to do my own stuff, it's like sometimes I'm just like, dude, I'm so burnt out and I'm tired. I don't know if I can like do it, and I'll like not do it for that night, and I feel like a little bit of my soul is like depleting a bit, and then like I think that's just it's like I mean doing art is basically like doing drugs. I mean it's like you get a high off of it, you get that dopamine hit when you create something, and when you don't do that, it really affects me and probably you too. It
sure.
just kind of like and but yeah,
Yeah,
I mean it's good
yeah,
to have a good support system.
it is, man. And I think the other thing too is we're from a different generation, right? Like we grew up before. with and alongside technology. So the conversations you and I can have are going to be one of like, we will ask more often than not, how are you and how is your world? And I think most people that are in a good place, regardless of wherever it's at, they truly mean it. But as artists, it's like, hey, man, how's everything? And you can tell from the inflection, you know what they mean because, people, I get it. My father was in construction. Like, it's really fucking dumb for me to be like, yeah, yeah, I have to draw Moon Knight. And some guy breaking concrete right now is like this fat asshole. I'm like, oh, everyone in the world's gonna like what I do, except for fucking what's his face, goddamn Pulp Fiction, because I didn't draw Moon Knight's feet.
Oh, Quentin Tarantino.
Oh, that son of
You
a
gotta
bitch.
drive. You gotta draw feet with little wrappings
Yeah,
around
you
it, so
didn't
the
use
toes are
that.
popping up.
You didn't use the hot eye enough. I'm like, for what? He's out for Reeboks. I'm like, oh, I thought that was a way different thing. But I mean, like again, man, it's hard because nobody really speaks about the mental challenge of like you went to work, you did your thing, and then you hit me up. Hey, man, I at this time I'm going to grab something to eat, and then we're going to go ahead and record. I came in early. I worked on the new video for the Sacred Society stuff. I worked on two tattoo clients stuff. Did a consultation. Took 30 minutes to go for a drive. It literally is like a 5 minute drive so I can get out of the shop. And then I came back and I'm like, cool, man, I'm ready when you are. Like, we don't get much time out of it, but that's kind of the trade-off. If you want a life that is a focus, there can be nothing else but lack thereof, right? Like, you have to have focus at all times. And if you don't have a good support system around you, then cultivate it. If you can't cultivate it, then you need to work on yourself, right? Like it's one or the other. And I think as we get older as artists, we focus more on like, I'm going to give you everything that I can't give even myself sometimes. So please bear with me as I do it. And the right clients are there, the right people, especially the artists that watch your channel that are looking to be like, man, I'm just trying to like figure out how I do it. It's like the difference between you and the version of you that's made it is a lot of hours and a lot of accountability and a tremendous amount more discipline. What you have a novice, you have a beginner, and I say novice is below beginner because there's somebody that kind of floats in or out. This is someone who's really trying to go into it. You have an intermediate, you have a pro, then you have a master. What comes after master, in my opinion, is a disciple. And that disciple realizes that there is no top, right? There is no end goal. You're just doing this, right? And you're just adding to something that never has a endpoint. My, I have to say this. My buddy Meech is a good friend of mine. He's out in Ireland, and he told me this quote recently when I was just trying to recalibrate. And he goes, man, when we were kids, we would play in bands and I would be there with you and people would go, man, your drummer's so good. And he's like, yeah, well, fuck me, right? Like I'm him with his bass. He's like, I was playing too. And he goes, everybody was always wowed by you, man. He goes, but I'm so proud of you because you never cease to amaze me. You don't surprise me. And he goes, I think he's a farmer now out in Ireland. And he goes, we need to, at our point in our lives, be around people who impress us, not surprise us. Because I'm never doubting that you're going to do something. I'm just impressed with how much more you do of it. If you're always around people who are surprising you, it's not a bad thing, but that can hold you back because that person will be like, oh man, those 3 or 4 hours Kieran has to really work on something and improve. Somebody goes, nah, fuck it, dude, let's go to the bar. The bar is not a bad thing, but if you're going more to the bar than you are the sketchbook, probably not the place for you, bud. You know what I mean? So to be around more people that impress us versus surprise us, I think is kind of the motto of where myself and Sacred is currently right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely finding. I mean, I think just in general, like you when you get older, your social group sort of shrinks just as a general rule, and you tend to take less bullshit from people overall, and that you kind of weed out the people that you don't want to be around with, and then the people that you do want to be around. And like I feel like I'm at that point where Dominic. I mean, me and Dominic are best buds, and
I love Dom.
he knows when I'm in a shitty mood, and like it's like, why are you in this shitty mood? I was like, well, I started something I was working on for 2 days, and it totally looks like shit, and now I have to start over again, and like I had all this time to work on it, and now I ruined the opportunity, and like now I need to like kind of decompress and not try to like jump off a bridge right now, but now after a couple hours you're like, okay, I'm better now, I'm like focused, whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's people know you're working towards something, and if they don't respect that, then they're probably not in your life anymore. So it's like
Yeah,
that's
it's
probably a
okay.
good
It's okay to absolutely not support what I do. It's not okay to tear it down because it would be just as important if we didn't support them, not because it's not worth our time, but it's just not our thing, right? That's completely fine. I don't know if you know this, but looking at me, I'm not the guy who's going to be like, yeah, the gym life for life, bro. Like, clearly not.
thing.
Why'd you laugh? But I mean,
No, I mean, I'm kind of
I'm,
the dude. I'm like the
I'm joking.
opposite. I'm actually like, because I've been thin my whole life. Like, I mean, and it's nothing that like I eat
Right.
like a freaking horse, dude. Like, I eat a bunch of food. But I just like my
Yeah.
metabolism's just insane. Yeah, I'll be 44 in November, and like I'm still like, I got the body of like a 14-year-old or something. You know what I mean? Like, so it's I've always wanted to be bigger, but it's like, I mean, I guess I could go to the take all these supplements and
Yeah,
do all
Kieran
this.
Digital and Brushes of Doom and the new Freaky Friday. But no, I mean, it would be terrible if we spent more time. If somebody isn't really in your corner supporting you, it doesn't mean they're tearing you down either, man. And I think that again goes back to the critique versus criticism. When you realize even if a person doesn't like you, who gives a shit? Like, do you enjoy art? Do you enjoy your family? And do you enjoy the little moments you have with yourself, your family, your best friends, and everything? And to be like, what, this is mine. Like all this is meant to be there. My dad tried to make a point to me, and he goes, Do you know who the guys are that built the pyramids in the Aztec pyramids?" Oh yeah, we had lunch last week. He go, boy, he had a really like deep voice. Well, fine, fine. No, I don't know them. He goes, well, listen. He goes, those guys. It didn't matter if you knew their name or not. Their work was so solid and they cared about it so much that thousands of years after they're gone, you still know what they did. Hope to do something that passionate, and maybe you might do something. And I think that's really what it comes down to. Are we really giving as much passion that maybe the world might not know, but your son will forever know, or the bands will forever know? Someone's kid who's part of that band is going to look at your artwork and be like, hey, dude, you know, um, like what you did for my family, like, they passed away or something or this, like, I just want to say thank you, like that was a real big part of my life. You never know, man, but if you give a shit, it'll show its face. It always does.
Yeah. Kind of kind of a weird question, because I know you're really you're
America.
very much an artist, but do you ever think like, okay, maybe 10 years in the future, like will you be doing something else? Do you ever imagine like, okay, maybe what if something happens when I like lose my passion to do tattoos or whatever? Like what do you see yourself doing outside of being a tattooist and artist? Like just something completely different.
Yeah, porn. I'm definitely going to be. They're going to call me my
That's
contra.
totally artistic. What are you talking about, man?
You're right.
Goes
See,
hand in
mom,
hand. I was
I
kidding.
told you it was art.
Yeah.
Yeah, get out. It's for science. No. That is that is the thing, man. I was having a conversation uh, to one of my friends, Tony Wen. I want to give a shout out to him. One of the few artists in the tattoo world that have, I mean, such a huge respect for, and not only as a creative type, but as like someone who, when we sit there, man, it's like watching a periodic table sit with each other and like deep dive into things. I think for me, I'm a person that loves history, so I work my way back. You don't get an Alex Ross or Drew Struzan without the Mobiuses or the Luis Garcias or the Topes. You don't get those guys without the Linedeckers or the Muchas. Like everything kind of comes in there. But because of that, you can go ahead and appreciate the linear storytelling of it with Tony has this kind of thing of where he's like, well, I did tattooing, and there's this old notion of like, I've earned my stripes. When does a soldier know that they're done being a soldier? Because you meet a lot of these tattooers that are like, hey, and it's usually East Coast guys. Hey, yo, there ain't no other way I ain't gonna be a down to brown tattooer. Bold will hold, brother. And that's cool and all, but life has evolved. Times are not as different as the people seem them to be. We just have more eyes on things, right? So Tony wants to be a art professor, like a actual doctorate and everything. And having the life he's had as a tattoo artist, moving to that element, I think is amazing. I think looking at him and people like yourself and so forth, I feel like I wasted most of my life because I didn't go to a fine art school. And I know that if I would have stayed in LA, I would have absolutely had a career in some type of profession as an illustrator. Not because I'm cocky, but because I know how hard I would have worked and I know the kind of doors that opened for myself. The reason it didn't go that way is because, like most people, including Tony, yourself, me, um, and those listening, you can kind of thrive anywhere you go as long as you give a shit. So I think I will fall into the role of just maybe one day I sell Sacred Eight, when maybe one day maybe I keep it open for the rest of my life. I don't know, but like I want to go back to how I was brought up, like through my drum instructor, Mike Johnston. He has a private studio that he teaches, does his camps, and he travels the world and kind of instructs around the world, and then he does his thing. It's funny to see. I was filming how-to videos and a lot of this stuff in the tattoo world back in 2011 when nobody was doing this. But then I have that stupid punk rock mentality where I'm like, this is lame because I don't care about clicks. I don't care about likes. I mean, the mic is in front of my face. I'm not stupid. I just don't like
Well,
showing
yeah,
my
you had me take down your
yeah.
photo too.
I
I was
love
like,
the
yeah, I wasn't sure.
no, it's fine. I love the anonymity. Quick side story. I was asked, do you ever remember World of Pencils?
No, I can't say
No
that I do.
worries. They were like the biggest share page years ago. I'm talking like 2010 to like 2016. They were making bank off of sharing other people's art. How I got to meet a lot of really famous artists was through them because I met them. They shared one of my things. They were in the Bay Area. We got hooked up with each other, and then they asked me to run their podcast. I was doing brushes at Zoom at the time. I was working with Treckle brushes. I was working with Out of Step books and still tattooing. And they asked me to go paint at the State of Grace Invitational, which is like the show of shows for like the real artists. And I'm like, why the fuck am I here, bro? Like this is terrible. Um, and I'm painting this watercolor Guardians of the Galaxy, and there is Chuy Quintanar, which is the most famously known by the public as like Travis Barker's tattoo artist. You have Franco Vescovi, which is the owner of one of the biggest owners of tattoo industry. And then you have Sean Barber, the living vampire. Phenomenal painter, but dude like does not, his facial expression is just, there's a painting of somewhere in and out of getting older and smiling somewhere. And so they're watching me and they're just like, oh, that's really nice. Oh yeah. Oh, that's really cool. And I'm like, oh fuck. And Chewy goes, hey man, how much? My daughter loves Groot. Like it wasn't like he didn't even really like my painting. It was just like my daughter likes that how much, and I was like, fuck, it's like a 24 by 36, fully hand painted. And he goes, I was like, I don't know, man. Like for you, I'll just give it to you because I respect him that much. And he was like, no, bro, you got what, 2-3 grand? Like you gotta put a price to your name. Like this is business. We are both businessmen, which I really appreciated. I gave him a print eventually just for his daughter. I was like, I'm not done yet. And what's crazy is at this time, um, I was doing all these videos and I got invited over because I was the only guy with actual real camera shit that I invested into and I could do it and I wasn't charging anybody, right? Because I wasn't trying to take it away from photographers or videographers. If you want to make your money, make it, boo boo. but like I was trying to come back to people who couldn't afford to go to these conventions or to learn. And I just wanted to see these people get a chance to grow. And what's crazy is that years later, seeing how Instagram and TikTok has become is like, it's like watching, it's like the guy who came up with Google and then immediately sees someone else make it. And you're like, huh. But I'm not upset at it because A, who cares? And B, I think at the end of it, the reason I left the World of Pencils podcast is there was this artist who was very boisterous on, well, they just share other people's work and they make money. That's kind of stealing. I don't think you should do that. An artist who just like, so Kieran makes a new Superman piece because Superman's coming out in 2 weeks. He would shit on that. And I was like, oh, you know what, dude? Maybe I'm taking from artists. Maybe the help I'm trying to give people is actually hurting people. So I dumped it all. And this is where Oregon comes in. And years later, this same artist is like, hey guys, the new Alien movie's coming out. Check out my new Alien merch. Like, oh, fucking asshole. But I mean, it kind of fucking worked out because I mean, here we are years later. Sacred is everything. Like when you're walking into Sacred 8, you're getting to meet how me and my best friends have always been. I may consolidate it to myself at some point, but truth be told, this place was supposed to be my version of Studio Blur by Tim Miller and of Super Ronnie as by Kim Gee and all of the people that work for Studio or Super Ronnie. I want to be in a studio with some of the best in the world that you don't necessarily tell each other what to do. You have your space, you kill it, you help each other get better, and then you just enjoy the fact that in the community, I mean, people give me a lot of credit for donations or this or that, but at the end of the day, it's like, bro, if your kid needs a fucking jacket and that lady has a jacket, I'm not that fucking cool for being like, oh, your kid's cold. Hey, she can help you out. You know what I mean? So to Tony and to people like you and everyone else who you may move on and do all these new things, I'm like stoked. For me, I think I will always do this in some form because I've seen what 10 years of holding back has done to me and what 20 years of not listening to what my heart has said. Granted, younger me needed to fucking go through those terrible things or to those harder times because that kid had to fucking learn. Absolutely. The only thing is I was never a better drawer than any of my peers. I still am not. I'm not a better artist. I'm not smarter than you, and I'm definitely not more handsome or in shape than you are. I just have nothing else to fucking live for, is how I used to think. Now that I have a shop, I have my wife and my family and everything and my best friends. I have everything to lose, so I have everything to live for now. So I better start living. And I think that's where the 10 years is refining how this becomes okay with my soul while not taking from others, but still not listening to those who are never going to put in the work like I will, if that makes sense. Oh,
No, seriously, that was
that
an
was off the
awesome
shaft.
response, man. Yeah, I just wanted to. I think we can probably just end the the interview with that because I was like, you ain't topping that, bro.
Yeah.
But yeah, X, thank you so much, dude, for taking the time today to do this. I know obviously you're super busy. I mean, you got so much on your plate, but I really appreciate it, and you know, just taking the time and talking to me, and I just want to let you know that you're a good dude, and you deserve all that you put in, and you've definitely put in a lot. So I'm just all the best to you, man. But I'm gonna leave a link to all your stuff below the video. If you guys are in Seaside, California, make sure you just stop by Sacred 8 Studios. They also have comic books and all that stuff. But again, got X doing amazing tattoos. But yeah, man, any shout outs you want to give before we end this?
Yes, please. A huge shout out to my wonderful wife, Susan, as well as my best friends, Cesar, Nathaniel, my other brother, Thomas, and just the amazing people that are in my life. I want to throw it out there that if you are listening and you want a great resource, like a great resource for art, look up Kieran Bakchi on all social media platforms because, again, I think it is understated, man, that as someone who has been doing this a long time, you are fucking killing it as a father. You're killing it as an illustrator, and you're killing it as a individual that not only has a family, but it's like running this thing, and it takes a lot of time because you're not just doing an interview. You're adding videos and stuff, and you're taking a lot of yourself to really kind of bring, I think, what unfortunately in this world we do not have a lot of anymore, which is sincerity and just realness, man. And it takes a lot to do, but it takes a lot from you, and you are a bastion of fucking inspiration, man. So cheers to you, man. Check out Kieran Bagchi and all his stuff. That would be my one recommendation.
Oh man, dude, you didn't have to do that, man. I appreciate it, dude. But yeah, again, thank you so much, and yeah, until next time, bro.
Man. All right, man. Thank you.